perpetrators. This view, this view remains consistent with the three dimensions of terrorism discussed in the events mainly after the Second World War. Terror is etymologically derived from the Latin word terrari, meaning to frighten. I repeat, dear learners, the Latin word terrari, meaning to frighten. The earliest precedent of the use of the word comes from terror, which was a state of emergency in Rome in response to the approach of warriors of Cimbri tribe in 105 BC. Terrorism of the non-state variety could trace its first originated organized manifestations to what noted political historian David Rapport calls the anarchist wave of 1880s. The wave first appeared in Russia and then spread to Western Europe, the Balkans, and the Asian countries. The anarchists were rebels against state authority and also against the traditional revolutionaries, who, according to them, were mere ideal word spillers. The anarchists believed that dramatic action was required to shake the foundation of state, and the most direct way was to assassinate the state officials. The first assassination was of the Russian Tsar Alexander II in 1881. Dear learners, I repeat, the first major assassination was of the Russian Tsar Alexander II in 1881. The 1890s was the age of assassination as a number of monarchs, prime ministers, and presidents were killed by assassins. Perhaps the most notorious assassination proved to be that of Archduke Ferdinand in 1914, which resulted in the catastrophic World War I. Dear learners, I had said earlier, this event of the First World War on a global basis is highly important, and it started in 1914 and ended in 1918. And it was the immediate cause of the First World War was the assassination of the Archduke Ferdinand. In between 1914 and 1918, in 1917, there was unrest and revolution, and in Russia, and it was a major event during the First World War. The second wave, according to report, started after the conclusion of the Treaty of Versailles, when national aspirations of many colonies in non-West were not respected. It was the age of Wilsonian idealist principles, but these principles were only applicable to the victors in the West. By now, the domestic nationalist movement in most of the third world countries had got disillusioned with their allied struggle. Moreover, the League of Nations of 1919 was a bystander to the onset and perpetuation of colonialism in many parts. Soviet Union had emerged as a new beacon of light and Marxist revolutionary ideology became the flavor of the time. Thus, there started an anti-colonial wave where the colonized resorted to violent actions against the colonizer. The colonizer deemed it as terrorism and labeled the freedom fighters as terrorists. Broadly, this came to end with the decolonization of third world states after the Second World War. The political and economic causes are usually intertwined in generating the acts of terror. Robert Gore has argued in his relative deprivation theory that people would resort to civil protest or political violence. The people will resort to political violence when concrete social, economic, or political privileges are withdrawn or denied to them. He argues that ordinary crime or political violence is directly or indirectly motivated by perceived or actual conditions of economic, social, and political inequalities. The economically deprived, who according to Marxist literature, in turn became politically and socially deprived, also make use of violence to prevent the bourgeois from exploiting them further. Naxalite or Maoist resistance in India is an example of using terrorism as a tactic linked to organized resistance because of economic deprivation and marginalization. The critics of this school, however, have argued that based on this interpretation, terrorism should be most prominent in places of high economic inequality such as Latin, such as Africa and Latin America. The religious causes, the fundamentalists elements in Islam believes that Muslims have been greatly marginalized and discriminated against in the New World Order, and that the nefarious alliance between Christianity, Judaism, and Hinduism has been the vanguard contrary to their belief. This thesis, as propounded by Samuel Huntington in his famous Class of Civilizations, has been an issue of much criticism and debate. Dear learners, the fundamentalists in Islam, analysts behind these religions, are seek millenarian objectives and wish to bring back the golden age of Islam, the Western modernity for its morally defined value system. Moreover, it is not religion per se, but its misuse or misinterpretation by certain individual groups within them, which causes terrorism. Most analysts argue that ideological affiliations by far remain the weapon which not only influence actors but also serves to influence or rationalize the terror acts they continue to commit. The answer to these lies in the ideological affiliations, indoctrination process, and manner in which irrationality is rationalized. Nazism, fascism, anarchy, Marxism, Leninism, Maoism, even nationalism, etc., are provided the ideological basis to the acts of terrorism. Marx is said to have stated in context of religion, religion is the opium of the masses. Dear learners, you may note it down on the term and exam. Marx has rightly said, religion is the opium of the masses. A similar statement could be made with regard to any ideology. There are numerous elaborate typologies of terrorism based on place, personality, traits, purpose, target, and issues. And most of them include some form of state terrorism, also known as mass terrorism, authorized terrorism, enforcement terrorism, repressive terrorism, as well as individual and group terrorism. Dear learners, one of the forms of non-state actor violence is terrorism that involves the use of a violent strategy or essential political reason. It is a tactic that has no specific independent ideology, but an ideological or religious group can use it to further its ends. Terrorism targets the state and particular communities, but ends up killing and damaging innocent people who may have nothing to do with the idea that the terrorists target. There are different causes for the employment of this method. Even guerrilla warfare and insurgency are considered as forms of terrorism. The dominant forms of political violence that cannot be juxtaposition within the broad ambit of terrorism or guerrilla warfare and insurgency. Both these forms constitute ideologically oriented, legitimate typology of protest. Principally, these forms differ from terrorism in the following manner. Firstly, the very nature of the act differs considerably. Terrorism is deliberate, indiscriminate, sporadic, and a highly visible form of violence to inflict casualties or non-combatants, while guerrilla warfare and insurgency are not so. Secondly, terrorism and guerrilla warfare or insurgency differ in their context. Terrorism is asymmetrical in nature, while guerrilla warfare and insurgencies are somewhat symmetrical in comparison. Dear learners, now to focus on disaster and the development. Recognize disaster management as a part of non-traditional security. Analyze the relationship between the development and global warming. Describe the initiatives undertaken by countries in handling the different forms of crisis. Development and global warming. Today, in the Earth's atmosphere, it contains about 280 parts per million of carbon dioxide. This means that global average temperature is of about 57 degrees Fahrenheit. This was not considered to be adverse, but as, as fast industrialization and growth started taking place, beginning with the industrial revolution in the Western countries and following by the rest of the world, industrial pollution, chemical changes were the outcome. Many experts and researchers showed the negative impact of the process of such development based on high growth rates. Dear learners, the industrialized countries have the highest of carbon emissions, and US carbon emissions are a quarter of the world's total, and this is continuously and steadily rising. China and India's carbon emissions, which currently account for almost 6% of the world's total, will more than triple within the next 20 years. According to a report compiled by a number of Indian institutions, the country's emissions will soar from 1.2 billion tons today to between 4 and 7 billion tons in 2030. Have started producing huge quantities of carbon dioxide (CO2), and today China has overtaken US in terms of carbon emissions. That was 6.2 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide in 2006 in comparison to the United States, which produced 5.8 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide. underscoring the pace and speed of industrialization. With huge population and rapid economic growth of this country, the prospects of worldwide decline in emission seems much more daunting. In the past 53 years, the global carbon emission has been rising 3.7 metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions contains a metric ton of carbon, and today carbon emissions are estimated at 8 billion metric tons a year. By 2057, the projected emissions will be of 16 billion metric tons of carbon a year. The possible temperature rise will be plus 9 degrees Fahrenheit to the existing temperature of 778 degrees Fahrenheit, and the atmospheric CO2 carbon dioxide concentration in parts per millions will be over 800 ppm as against the current 525 ppm. Dear learners, there are three possible paths for future carbon emissions. Number one, maintain the current rate of increase. Second, hold emissions at today's rate by following 0.8 carbon cutting wages by 2057 and then reducing further. Princeton researcher Robert Sacolo and Stephen Pacola have described 15 stabilization wages, carbon cutting wages using existing technology to realize the goal. Carbon capture and storage. Use capture system at coal-driven hydrogen plants producing 30 million barrels a day. Introduce system to capture carbon dioxide. Replace large coal-fired power plants with natural gas fire plants. Displace coal by increasing production of nuclear power to three times of today's capacity. Renewable source of energy. Increase the wind generated power to 25 times of current capacity. Increase the wind power to 50 times current capacity to make hydrogen for fuel cells car. Increase solar power to 700 times of current capacity. Increase ethanol biofuel production to 50 times of current capacity. Try to stop all deforestation, expand conservation, tillage to all cropland. So we can hold emissions at today's rate by cutting 8 wages and reduce emissions by half over the next 50 years by cutting 4 more wages and then reducing further. Ethanol can cut our carbon emission in a very significant way as compared to the fossil fuel and hence can be used as a substitute for gas, oil and diesel. It is made from crops like corn, soybean and sugarcane. It is not only a renewable source of energy but also what it emits as carbon is what the crops get from the sun during the growing season. Dear learners, now there is a fuel food debate, a continuous debate on the issue of food security, where the food crops are sent to the generating biofuels at the cost of being provided as food to people. We are facing a food crisis and we cannot help watching millions going hungry at the cost of generating biofuels. As crops being supplied as food or the people become less and get diverted for production of biofuels, the food prices will shoot up and this will further lead to serious health problems, especially of the poor, and it will be grave violation of the human rights. In the US, a small operation at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in Golden, Colorado can convert a ton of biomass into 70 gallons of ethanol in a week. Likewise, switchgrass can produce as much ethanol per acre as sugarcane. Cellulose in corn plants can double the ethanol output. Cellulose ethanol derived from prairie grasses grown on land unfit for the other crops would replace up to 13% of the world's oil consumption if an efficient way to turn cellulosic plant matter into ethanol can be developed. Precision farming. In precision farming, dear learners, advanced agrotechnology and water efficiency, irrigation, fertigation systems are used. Seedlings are raised under sheds, houses with insect-proof netting. Water and soluble fertilizers are applied precisely to the root zone of the plants using modern dry irrigation to keep the ideal moisture and aeration. Weeds are less as the surface of the soil dry during the cropping season. Rather, this water economic precision farming system brings down the labor cost, usages of pesticides and fertilizers. Our root zone fertigation ensures precise plant grow faster. In the greenhouse system, atmospheric moisture is maintained at the desirable level using mist irrigation. With this technology, about 100 to 150% higher yield is expected for all crops. In India, states like Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Kerala, and Punjab have farmers who are practicing precision farming. They are reaping bumper harvest, chili, tomato, banana, capsicum, and a variety of fruits and vegetables. Tomato output is traditional development. Tomato farming was one output was 1 ton, but now with precision farming, it has been pushed to 3.5 tons. Capsicum grown in the 1,000 square feet greenhouse has fetched rupees 2.5 lakh in the last 6 months, says the farmers. Dear learners, the water requirements has also brought down by 70%. They further say that although the cost of having greenhouse farming, there is open house precision system also is a expensive at the initial stages. Cultivation can be done round the year, irrespective of the climatic conditions. Dear learners, now our agriculture universities are doing lot of research and there is face-to-face interaction with the farmers that how to increase the production level with less using lesser amount of fertilizers, pesticides, and other things. Now also there is a demand for the cow dung, and the farmers are using it and getting rich harvest, rich harvest. One has to also look at the climatic condition when one is thinking of making farming around the year. Thus, with the exactness and accuracy in the fertilizer and water requirements for each vegetation that is derived on the basics of laboratory tests of the sample of soil and water of the farmlands, a package of irrigation and fertigation is designed accordingly and provided to the farmers. Thus, precision farming protects the health of the farmers, does not affect the yield, and does not pollute the environment. Dear learners, to give an example, the present Indian government, under the dynamic leadership of Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji and Shri Shivraj Singh Chauhan as the Agriculture Minister, is rendering a lot of services to the Indian farmers to increase the production, and a lot of emphasis has been given to the farmers of Punjab, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, coastal states, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, that they increase the production and thus getting better yields. Thus, with exactness and accuracy in the fertilizer and water requirements for each vegetation, that is derived on the basis of a laboratory test of the sample of soil and water of farmlands, a package of irrigation and fertigation design. The precision farming protects the health of the farmers, does not affect the yield, and does not pollute the environment. Dear learners, regarding the organic farming, I must say organic farming can replace the use of chemical pesticides with the combination of physical and biological measures, including eco-friendly biopesticides. Biopesticides are locally available organic materials that do not harm the health of the farmers, do not affect the yield, and do not pollute the environment. They include extracts of chilies and garlic, neem seeds, cow dung, milk, ghee, fish, jaggery, lime, eggs, custard, apples, and so on. Initially, the farmers are taught to cultivate without pesticides, and once this is done, they do without fertilizers and became completely organic. The crops grown under the organic farming are paddy, red gram, cotton, groundnuts, bajra, jar, castor, sunflower, chilies, turmeric, and the vegetables. Organic farming is now being practiced in many states across the country, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, that is from north to south, and Kutch to Kohima, Kutch in Gujarat to Kohima, Nagaland in the northeast. More specifically, states of Maharashtra, Punjab and Andhra Pradesh. They are doing very well. Dear learners, I repeat, the states doing very well in organic farming. You may note down for your term and examination. If it is a triangle, I will call ABC. A represents Maharashtra, B for Punjab, and C for Andhra Pradesh. There is an added advantage that once the farmers learn these practices, they disseminate the knowledge to others. Because once the farmers are educated, they interact with their neighbors and the farmers, their co-farmers living in the neighborhood. They share their ideas, and thus the organ farming concept grows from one farmer to the other farmer. There is an added advantage that once the farmers learn these practices, they disseminate the knowledge to others. And it is said, knowledge is power. Once the farmer is educated, they will spread the knowledge to their co-farmers and the farmers in their neighborhood, and it goes on. The farmers of Andhra Pradesh have also seen the farmers in Andhra Pradesh have also been doing their own research and coming up with original solution. You go and observe this, you may witness it in the coastal districts of Andhra Pradesh, that in the Krishna district, Godavari district, Kodapa district, that they are doing very well in the organic farming. This is crucial in making the farmers self-reliant in terms of knowledge and inputs. Thus, dear learners, to sum up the relationship between development and global warming and how with growing developmental needs, the emissions have increased owing to the incessant use of fossil fuels. The stabilization wages that pertains to efficiency, conservation, carbon capture, storage, etc. Have biofuels like ethanol and alcohol from corn, soybean, and sugarcane have helped in reducing the emissions and carbon from the burning of fossil fuels. Dear learners, for example, I can say that the Indian Council of Agriculture Research, located at Pusa, New Delhi, is doing a lot of research in the new trends in farming, more so in the organic farming, and disseminating the knowledge to the farmers by calling state level workshops at ICAR. Similarly, the Institute of Agricultural Science, Banaras Hindu University, is doing notable work in the field of agricultural science and farming. Similarly, in Odisha, OUAT, Odisha University of Agricultural and Technology, located at Siripur, Bhubaneswar, is doing wonderful work in this domain of organic farming. They are inviting the farmers from different districts of Odisha in batches to observe and disseminate the knowledge by going back to the district. Even the KBK districts, Kolahandi, Balangir and Koraput, they have also shown keen interest for organic farming. This is worth noting. And also the coastal belt, Balasore, Bhadrak, Puri, Katak, Jajpur, Kendrapada, along with traditional farming, are now more interested not to so the traditional farming with modernized system of farming, organic farming, are helping the farmers not only to produce more crops, vegetables, but also improving the quality content. Precision farming and organic farming have been good steps in this direction. Dear learners, I repeat, precision farming and organic farming have been good steps in this direction. This is one way of protecting both the man and nature and sustaining in order to survive in the much polluted environment today. The Ministry of Forest and Environment and the Ministry of Agriculture are collaborating with each other to help the farmers, the Indian farmers, to adopt the new techniques, methodology in organic farming, and the government of India also providing a number of grants to the farmers in this regard under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Sri Modi ji. Human security does not confine to protecting people from direct and indirect violence. It extends to both latent and active impending disaster. Dear learners, the environmental security is the need of the hour. Yes, it is with the environmental security we can achieve a lot. And so it is the need of the hour as the world is witnessing excessive pollutants in its atmosphere level. There is a saying in English, a stitch in time saves nine. We have to adopt new techniques. Our farmers should adopt new techniques, inculcate the organic farming as it has been practiced, as I said, the triangle I gave you example, triangle, one end A, other end B, other end C. We can represent the three states which are doing well in organic farming. A for Maharashtra, B for Punjab, and C for Andhra Pradesh. And whatever is being done in relation to organic farming is also being propagated to the print media, to the television, in different serial form pertaining to agriculture, and our farmers should witness them and so that they can adopt the same techniques with them to improve their yields. Here I must say one thing, that production should not be only in quantity. The agricultural production, be it crops or the vegetable, should be both in quality and quality content also, not only quantity wise. The quality content should also be there. And I feel with the increase in production at the level of the farmers, certainly they will do well, because food security, if the production is increased, certainly, and the quality content is maintained, I am sure it will augment our process of the growth. And also, they should cater to the eco-friendly measures. The farmers to adopt the eco-friendly measures. The people in general to cater to the eco-friendly nature. There should be interaction with the people and the farmers. So I say that the eco-friendly measures needs to be adopted if we have to achieve human security at all possible levels. The eco-friendly measures, I'm sure, will go a long way in not only protecting our environment, but helping the farmers in different ways. Again, I say in conclusion, environmental security is the need of the hour as the world is witnessing excessive pollutants in its atmospheric levels. So let it be environmental friendly. Let the government of India adopt the pro-farmer techniques, help the farmers in different ways, provide them subsidies, other essential elements required for farming so that they cater to food production in a quality way. Thank you, dear students. Thank you very much. Thank you.